Hello everyone, my name is Ismail and welcome to my YouTube channel. Today I'm here with a new tutorial for you. Today we are going to talk about texturing this product and work with a few different materials. I've tried to speak very simply and smoothly so you can understand the techniques. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Okay, let's get started. I want to start with the wood material and I go to the material section and use the wood raft material. Okay, I create a new folder and name it the wood, and I place this layer inside the folder. Okay, I add a black mask, and from the polygon fill section I select the area I want. Alright, I set the projection to triplanar so I can move the texture around. I also set the scale number to 3. I think that's okay now. I also changed the color a bit, making it a little brighter. That's good now. I rotate the texture a bit. That's looking good. From the parameters, I reduced the depth. I also reduced the high and normals. It's better to reduce the depth of the textures. This is the base material and we are going to make a lot of changes to it. I add another fill and select a darker color. I turn off the normals and middle. And I increase the roughness and I add a black mask and use the smart masks. Okay, I'll use this one. I'll try the other masks too to see which one is better. Yes, this one is much better. In the settings, I increase the balance and contrast as well. I want to have some dirtiness on the wood. And I reduce the amount of it. I also set the mood to soft light and reduce the amount again. I rename it. Okay, that's good now. I want to add some more textures. Okay, I'll add a new fill and I'll change its color to a brown color. I'll turn off normal and middle again and increase the roughness. I'll add some high to give it some depth and I'll add a black mask again. Okay, yes. And now I'll add another fill and from the material section I'll search for wood again and use that material this time. I'll change the projection and I'll also change the scale 5. I'll rotate the texture again. That's mostly okay now. I'll make it a bit smaller. I'll move it around. Okay. Now from the filter section, I'll add a high pass filter to reduce the contrast. Now I'll add a level to control the contrast. Okay. That looks really good. I'll put the mood back to soft light. Okay, I'll add another filter and this time I'll add a blur. And I'll reduce the amount. I'll add another level to have better control. I'll reduce this amount as well. That's better now. I'll also rename it. Okay, now I want to add some damage and distress to the piece. Okay, I'm taking another copy of this layer. I'm renaming it and setting the mode to multiply and deleting these layers and filters. I'm adding a fill layer and using maps. I'm using the directional map. I'm setting it to mask mode. And I'm changing the projection and changing the scale. Okay, now it's looking good. I'm rotating the texture to align with the previous texture direction. And I'm increasing the height. And I'm increasing the balance and contrast a bit more. Okay, you can see these sections are being applied to the work. Alright, I'm inverting it to make it okay. Yeah. I can decrease the height now. Now I'm adding a filter and control the edges. I'm reducing the amount. I'm adding a fill layer and using grunges this time. And I'm using this map. And I'm changing the projection and rotating the texture. I'm using scale 3. It's okay. I'm decreasing the contrast a lot. I set the mode to linear dodge. I'm reducing the balance again. And also reducing the amount. I can reposition the texture. Okay. Now I'm taking a copy of this woodruff and using it again. This time I'm setting it to multiply mode to make it darker. And reducing the amount. I'm taking another copy and increasing the amount. And I'm using smart masks to darken the edges a bit. Okay, I think this one is good. I'm increasing the level and decreasing the contrast. Okay, I'm also increasing the grunges. I'm adding a paint effect to create the section I want. By clicking, I can easily darken these sections. Okay. That's great. I'm also changing this amount. I'm taking another copy of this with texture. This time I want to make the edges a bit brighter. I'm using an HSL filter and adjusting the color a bit. I'm putting the mode on overlay. I'm adding a black mask and using this smart mask. I'm increasing the balance a little. I'm controlling the parameters. Okay. You can see the color has become a bit brighter. I'm reducing this amount a little. That's great. Now it's okay. I'm taking another copy of the wood texture. But this time I'm changing the color and turning off the high. I'm at the generator and using metal edge. I'm increasing the contrast and want to make the edges brighter. I'm adding a level and putting it on high mode. Now it's good. I'm giving it very little depth. I'm reducing the balance and contrast a bit. Okay. I'm taking a copy of this layer and I'm cleaning up the metal edge. And I'm adding a filter and HSL filter so I can have better control over the color. Well, I'm reducing the saturation and also reducing the high amount. Okay. And I'm selecting a bright color. That's great. Now I'll come and select the Add Generator and add a model edge to be able to create edge distortions. I increase the warp level and decrease the contrast. Okay. I also slightly change the bevel and increase the grunge. Okay, I change the color again. I control the edges like this. It got much better. I add the paint and set this value to 0 and delete the excess parts. For example, I don't want these parts to be like this and I delete them. And I also increase the levels a bit more. Now I want to use a series of textures to create more distortions. I add the texture I want. For example, I use this one. I adjust the texture and create the part I want by clicking. It's very easy. You can see how well these distortions are created. Now I can also use the rest of the textures and create these distortions in other parts. It's great. I might also be able to make changes to these sections. Okay. We can use any map for a particular section and have a different effect. By clicking, we can easily do this. I'll speed up the video a bit so it doesn't take too long. And in this way, I've done all the parts I wanted. Okay, well, I'll come here and add an anchor point so I can use it in detail later. Okay, I add a fill, and now I'm using this texture. I will slightly change the scale and the projection as well. Okay. Now I can control these things with one level. Okay, I reduce this value. Okay. I add another texture and use it. Now I add another fill and use the grunges. I think this is okay. I put the mode on the screen and I set the scale to 3. I control the parameters and I increase the balance. Okay, I also use a sharp filter to better see the details. Okay. I want to darken the edges of these distortions a bit. I add a fill and slightly change the color. Okay, I increase the roughness. I add a black mask and also add a fill. And this time I use the anchor point I added. So that the changes are applied exactly on those distortions. Okay, now I add a blur filter. And now I add another fill and use the same anchor point. I put this mode in multiply mode. And I activate the invert option. Now you can see that the edges are a little darker. And now if I increase the values, you'll see that the same edges become more prominent. And this is because of that anchor point. Okay, now it's much better. Alright. I'll also change the placement of this middle edge. Okay, I'll also reduce this amount a bit. I'll add a pen here to be able to control the damages again. Okay, I don't want them to be too much. Great. Now it's much better. Okay. I'll add another layer to be able to create some spots. I'll change the color. I'll turn off the middle and normal, and I'll also increase the roughness to make it matte. And I'll add a black mask and use some smart masks. This seems okay. Well, you can see the spots. I lighten the color a bit, and I'll also add some depth to the work to make it a bit more prominent. I can still control the values. I'll also reduce the contrast a bit. Okay. Well, I'll add another fill and use a dark color. So I'll add a black mask and use a fill. I'll add a grunge map. I want to have these spots on the wood. I'll change the scale and set it to 2. I'll reduce the balance and increase the contrast. Okay? I'll add the paint to be able to remove the extra parts. I reduce the flow. And by clicking, I'll delete these parts. Okay, it's getting better. It's very good. I'll also reduce this amount. Okay, I've deleted all the extra parts. Now it's much better. The wood material is alright, and we can move on to the rest of the materials. Alright, let's go to this section. I want to work on this part with fabric. Alright, I'm selecting this fabric and I'm adding a black mask. And from this section, I'm only selecting this part. Okay. We need to make some adjustments to the settings. I'm turning off normal, middle, and high. I'm also changing the color a bit. And now it's pretty much okay. Yes. This is a ready-made material, but nevertheless, I want to make some changes. Okay? I'm changing the scale of this a bit. I think the number 10 would be appropriate. I'm adding a warp filter so that I can have some control over the fabric texture. Okay, that's better. And it's really good. I'm checking the fiber. And I think the number 8 would be suitable. I am increasing the fold amount a bit. I can also tweak the blur a little. I'm adding a fill and using a green color. I'm turning off middle and normal and giving it a bit of high. Okay? I'm adding a black mask and I'm selecting this from the Smart Mask section. I'm increasing the global balance a bit. I'm changing the color again. Okay, now it's better. A bit brighter. Yes, that's better. I'm changing the texture amount and also increasing the depth a little. Okay. I'm taking a copy from this layer. I'm making the color a little darker. This time I'm using a different black mask. I'm changing the values. I'm setting the mode to multiply, and I'm increasing the balance a little bit. And I'm also reducing this amount. You can see how much better it looks. Okay. I can lighten the color of the edge. Now it looks much better. I'm adding a fill and selecting the green color again. I'm turning off normal and metal and adding a black mask. And I'm adding another fill. Okay? And I'm using the grunges. I think this one is good. I want to create a series of sprays. I'm changing the projection. I'm selecting the number 8. And I'm increasing the balance a lot. And I'm also increasing the height a bit. Okay? Now I'm adding a filter and using the sharp filter. The details have improved a lot. I'm reducing the balance again. And this time I want to add some spots. I'm adding a fill. Turning off normal, middle, and high, and selecting the dark color. Okay, I'm adding a black mask and another fill, and using the grunges. This is good. I'm setting the projection to try planar mode and also changing the scale. I think the number 4 is okay. It looks very good. And I can move it around. I'm also reducing this amount. Okay, you're seeing the changes. It has become very good. I'm adding a sharp filter again to better see the details. I can still adjust these changes. Okay, I'm adding the metal edge from the add generator. I set the mode to linear dodge. I'm controlling the settings a little. And I'm also reducing this amount. Okay. Alright. I'll double check the layers again. Everything is okay. I'll slightly increase the high amount. Okay, that's better. Our material is almost ready. We were able to create this material quite easily. Now let's make the metal material together. Now let's make the metal material together. Alright, I'll come and select a ready-made material from the middle section. I'll search for the metal. and I'll select this material. I'll add a black mask and apply it to this section. Okay, I'll go into its settings. For now, I'll turn off this layer as we don't need it. Alright, I'll check the settings. I'll check the parameters. And by reducing this value, I'll darken the color slightly. I'll also reduce the contrast a bit. I think it's okay now. Now I want to add some rust and weathering. I'll select the rust fine from the material section. I'll set the projection to triplanar and the scale to 3. Okay. I'll make the color a bit darker. Okay, that's great. Okay, now I want this rust to be only on the top and the bottom part of the metal blade to be shiny. Alright, I'll copy this layer right here and use it for some parts. I will slightly modify the parameters. I'll increase the grind size a bit. I'll also make the color a bit lighter. Okay. Okay, I'll add a black mask and add a paint that I can use to create changes with the texture. Alright. I'll import the desired texture. You can download these textures from my Telegram channel. Okay, I want to use these textures, and I'll select this texture and add it to the stencil. I'm moving and adjusting the texture, and by clicking, I'm creating the changes. Okay. You're seeing it. It's very good. Now I'm using another texture. I'm moving it and I want to create these lines on my work. Okay. I add a level and place it on the high so I can control the values. It's better now. I can still control these parts more. It's okay. Now I'm going to add a fill, and this time I want to use the grunges. I'm using this map. Okay? I change the projection. I set the scale to 4. I set the move to linear dodge. And I invert this. Okay. I reduce the balance a lot, and I also reduce the contrast, and I reduce its effect. Okay. I add the generator and add the model age to be able to change the ages too. I set the mode to screen and I control its settings. I increase the balance and contrast, and I reduce the grunge. Okay, very good. Okay, you can see the edges. It's turned out very well. I add a fill to add some spots. I add a black mask and use a fill again. Okay, I use this map. I hit invert. I change the projection and I set the scale to 2. I increase the balance to reduce the effect. I also set the contrast to 0. I also slightly reduce this amount. Okay. I also want to add a dirt effect. I'll add a fill and use dark color. I'll turn up the high, middle, and normals. I'll increase the roughness. Okay, I'll add a black mask and use smart masks. And I think this will be alright. I'll increase the level and I'll also slightly increase the contrast. Alright. The effect is too strong. I want to reduce it a bit. I'll increase the contrast and also the balance. I'll reduce this amount quite a bit. Okay, that's better. Well, I'll also control these sections a bit to make them better. I'll delete the sections. Okay, now it's good. Well, okay, the middle material is also done. It's good. Thank you very much for watching this video. Don't forget to like and comment, and don't forget to subscribe the channel. Until the next video, goodbye.